What does a good day look like to you? According to one of our guests today, if you can answer that questions quickly, you've just missed the point. I'm Stefan Reinhardt, Director of Education for the C.L.E.A.R Institute, and with my co-host Jerry Sampson, we invite you to an interesting conversation with Dr. Michael Wharton Palmer and his golf coach, Karl Morris. Now you see that golf often reveals other things in life. Welcome to this 8th episode of The Odd Couple. Oh my God, yeah. We have something for you today.
What are we doing today, Stefan? Tell.
Well, let's tell just the story short of how it started. You know, you have you give lectures, you give courses. You have your classroom in Marietta, the Gnathos classroom, which the link is in the description. I started going there in 2009, and you have a lot of interesting people in there, but some stand out from others, right? And a couple of years ago, this guy was there at the same time as me and Frederic Poirier, and we went to have a lunch together. Where was that?
It was called the OK Cafe. We went there to have lunch after the meeting on a Saturday, the four of us. And
that's it. And we had quite an interesting conversation, right?
Michael Wharton Palmer, who all of you are about to meet, was on the European Golfers Tour. He's a professional golfer. And I knew, because we've become friends over, I've known him since he was a postgraduate student in pediatric dentistry, is his the dental lane he's in Texarkana, Arkansas. He's also from England originally, the UK. Well, I knew from discussions with him that he had become involved with a sports psychologist who's exceptionally well-known and very highly respected, because Michael had developed, similar to a writer's block, he had developed a golf competitor's block, and he had a lot of difficulty getting past this. And that was our conversation at lunch.
Yeah. And when we started doing these podcasts, we were thinking of people we could have as guests. And his name came. I mean, Michael and his coach. And we're happy now that they're the first guest we have on this podcast. And without further
delay,
let's
Odd
join
Couple with Michael Wharton Palmer and Karl Morris of the Mind Factor. Wait till you get a load of this.
Oh yeah. No, we're really happy today. We have, for the first time, Jerry, on the Odd Couple podcast, we have guests. And
yes.
I mean, this story started, I think, a couple of years ago. I don't remember how many years ago. We were having a nice lunch or dinner, Jerry, with our friend Frederic Poirier and Michael here. And we started discussing, and I still have this discussion in my head. I mean, something happened there, and Michael told us a bit of his story. And I mean, we had to meet you. We had to meet with Karl, and I will let you, Michael, please introduce Karl, introduce yourself, and let's start from there.
Okay. Well, my name's Michael Wharton Palmer. I'm a pediatric dentist, and I've known Jerry Sampson, the gaffer, for about 28 years on a professional. And we've become good friends over the years. So through dentistry, but that's not what we're here to talk about today, which I guess makes this podcast somewhat different for Stefan and Jerry in the first place. And also with us today is Karl Morris, who is my mentor and sports psychologist, I guess it would be the closest official term. And Karl and I have been working together for about 2 years because I had become a little bit of a head case because of this game called golf and what it was doing to my life. I mean, it's as some people listening to this, at least at this stage of the discussion, will probably think, well, this is rather trivial. And in the big picture of life, it is trivial. But in my life, it wasn't trivial because the emotions that I was feeling from the game that I was supposed to love was making life miserable. So here we are.
Well, this my question when this came up, now that you've heard a bit of Michael's background, Michael, you were on the European Professional Golfers Tour, right? I mean, this is a serious part of your life.
Yeah, I went to European Q school in, well, I can't remember what year it was, somewhere in the mid-'80s. Got through Q school and then decided that was probably the first sign, actually, and then decided that that's not what I wanted to do. I realized, even though I got through Q school, I realized that I wasn't good enough to be where I was. And that's when I decided to pursue dentistry.
Now, what's Q school for the great unwashed?
Back in the day, there was a qualifying school, and it wasn't nearly as hard as it was now. But you basically showed up for 4 days. There was just one 4-day tournament, and if you got through the 4-day tournament, that gave you some rights to play on the European Tour.
Okay.
Yeah. And the same year that I was there, Colin Montgomery was there, Carlos Franco was there, who was from Paraguay, and I played with Carlos Franco the last 2 days of Q school. My brother was caddying for me, and we walked off. My brother just said, "What the fuck are you doing? You're never going to be that good." And he was right.
Carl, what do you think of that? What do you think of that?
It's an interesting one. I mean, first of all, it feels as though I've been invited into a secret society here with you three guys. I've never done a podcast with a dentist, a bunch of dentists before, so that's a novel one for me. I'm always open to new experiences. I think it's interesting what Michael said, and when we first started to work together, we explored one central theme, really, which I think would be relevant for everybody listening, whether you play golf, baseball, or it's about your business in the dental world. And that's what I call the story. And basically, as I understand it, we're all just a collection of stories. We carry this narrative around with us, of stories that have been built up from other people, the influences that we've had, and the way that we've interacted with the world. And a guy called Timothy Wilson wrote a book called Redirect, and he made me very aware. And he said in the book, the stories that we live by. And he talks a lot about story editing, about being able to see that you're kind of living your life by following this script around. And unless you decide to change that script, you're going to be pretty consistent in your output. You're going to be consistent in the mistakes that you make. You're going to be consistent with what you earn. Now, you may be happy with that, or you may be very distressed with it. But golfers often say to me, "I want to be more consistent." Well, most people are very consistent. They might be consistently bad, but they are consistent. And I think Michael, you probably remember the very first time we talked, we understood that. For me, the most important thing is if you're going to change your story in any way, whether that's business or sport or life, the first thing you've got to do is be really aware of what the current story is, the patterns that you're running, and the things that you keep doing that are kind of holding you back. And we explored that in a lot of detail, didn't we?
Yeah.
And how did you explore that? What was the process?
Well, the main process is certainly me not telling Michael what to do. Is that the power of actually, it sounds an obvious thing to say, but the power of actually writing things down. I'm not a Luddite, but I'm certainly not a guy who knows much about technology. But there's a lot of evidence to suggest that putting things into a computer or speaking into your phone isn't as powerful as actually writing in a journal. It seems that journal writing, throughout not the history of mankind, but certainly in the last few hundred years, that by writing in a journal, the reflections that you can make from your brain when it comes out on paper can really be kind of quite cathartic. So that was the first step, is to get Michael to sort of write in detail. And this was focused on golf. but golf often reveals other things in life, and get him to really write down what the current story was like, how he reacted to certain situations, how anxiety was playing a part with it, and without trying to change anything, just get the current story down. It's, you know, what I've found over the years is that single exercise can actually be the start of some really quite interesting changes, because when you get it all out there and you see what your current story is, then it goes from being just this autopilot that's running inside of your head to something that you can take some action with.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, Karl, because I recently, being a my main career right now is education, and so I stopped private practice 4.5 years ago. But I just read something quite fetching, that college students, and I think I'm going to say college, post grad, whatever, that if all they did was sit watching a Zoom, or sit in a seminar or a lecture and record it or listen, that had nowhere near the positive impact of physically making notes, not tapping on a computer, writing just the way you said. And I find that quite remarkable. So the first commitment someone would have to make if they contact you through your business is called the Mind Factor, isn't that right?
Yeah.
And there'll be a link.
We're gonna have the link, all of the links in the description. You can find everything there.
The interesting thing about this is I've always been a journal keeper. So this the actual act of going into making notes was very simple for me, because I've been making notes on this issue. I mean, I've got a stack of notes like this. I've read just about every self-help book there is on golf psychology, and I've made notes out of the wazoo out of those books in an attempt to conquer the fear and the anxiety I was feeling. So to me, it wasn't a case of keeping a journal. It was, what are you writing? Rather than, so I wasn't really self-analyzing at all when I was doing my writing. I was just kind of like a book like Vision 54, which to the dental people amongst us is one of the leading books and so-called systems of golf psychology, or something from Bob Rotella. I mean, I've got all of those books, and all it was doing was making me go deeper in the hole, because every time I read another book, it was making me feel more inadequate, because it wasn't helping. And all these books would end up telling you it's only a game. Don't worry about it. Why? It's just a game. It's not your life. So every time I read another book, it was making me feel worse, because I couldn't handle it. I couldn't do anything about it. Every time I read a book, I'd feel worse about myself. So it was never addressing the issues. So that's when I decided, listen, this isn't working. I've got to turn to someone one-on-one. And this is 10 years down the line, probably over. I've got to turn one-on-one, someone I can face to, someone I can be accountable to, and someone who can actually talk to me and say, okay, listen, you're right. It's not just about reading a book. We've got to go through various steps to get you to where maybe you want to go.
Karl, what do you think about that? Oh, sorry, Stefan, you were going to say something.
No, I just wanted to know what was the time between, you did Q school. So how long ago was that?
That was probably, that would have been 80. I think that was 86, I believe.
86. And you started with Karl?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So
yeah.
What was the process? Because from what I understand, you struggled all these years.
Yeah, it was very manageable, and it was okay until about let's think, probably 2006 was a very good year. I was Arkansas Player of the Year in 2006, and I had a pretty good mid-am career that year. I had some good finishes. At the same time, my ex-wife wasn't going through the best of health. And I think in psychoanalysis, because I was living with her and life at home was getting worse and worse, golf became my only outlet, and it just got out of control. Golf, my life was golf.
Okay.
I mean, there's about a 5-year gap in there where I really don't remember life very much at all, to be quite honest. If it wasn't for songs that were released at that time, I wouldn't know what year it was.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and the anxiety just got worse and worse and worse, then went through divorce, which is always unpleasant. So by the time we got to 2016, 2017, I was now eligible for senior golf at 55. You move into a different age group. My first year as a senior, I played, didn't enjoy it, but played about 6 events. And just from 6 events, I was top 30 in the country. So that was good. And then bang, then the war came in. Now all of a sudden expectation, stress, fear, anxiety. And then one day I was at a tournament, played the first 2 rounds of a 3-round tournament and couldn't get out of bed on Sunday to finish the job.
Now, part of before...
And then I called Karl within 2 weeks of that.
Okay.
Yeah, before we jump into what Karl has to say about this, Michael and I being not only colleagues, but quite good friends, my first question, Karl, to him is, well, why don't you just stop competing and just play golf for fun? Forget the competition. Now, during that conversation, and then I want to hear what the rest of you have to say about this, but it occurs to me, everything is a competition. It's not just golf. It's not just dentistry. It's not just interpersonal relationships. Like right now, I mean, the competition, I can define my own competitions rather clearly. Minute to minute, it's easy. I mean, the clock's running. So the definition of winning is something Karl, that I am quite engaged in the sustaining mythology of these things. Karl, what's your comments about generally about what Michael has said?
Yeah, I think, it's one of those situations where, you can walk away from something, and if you can walk away from something and it genuinely isn't important to you, that might be the appropriate action. But clearly for Michael, one of the key questions I'll get anybody to ask, for instance, if it's golf, but you could apply it to many things, is what sounds a simple question is, why do I play golf? And I always say, well, when you're going to answer that question, don't always take the first answer. It's something that you need to contemplate for a while and maybe go down 2 or 3 levels of why you're actually playing this game, why you're actually doing these things. Now, if you can then answer that question, and sometimes it brings to the surface that maybe, and it wasn't the case with Michael, but maybe you're playing this game because there's some debris left from the past, where you're really playing golf because you want to try and impress your father or get some love from you, or whatever it is, whatever those things that can sometimes come to the surface. But if you can answer the question honestly, why do I play golf, or why do I fill in the blanks, and you get down to some levels that of real value to you, if you really value the sense of being a competitor, and you really value the sense of being able to hit shots in pressurized situations, when you uncover those things, and it really is valuable to you, and it really is important to you. I mean, one of the things that we discuss with Michael a lot is, when you decide that you're going to do this, what is the most important thing? Is it the event itself, or is it actually the training that you do for the event? And as Michael will perhaps fill in, actually the real joy in a lot of things, it's like building a business. Everybody thinks that the real joy is selling the business or making millions of dollars or whatever, which can be nice when it happens. But the real joy for most people is being completely and utterly absorbed in a project, whatever it may be, whether it's to be a better dentist or an educator or a golfer or whatever it is. Because there's a guy called John Kabat-Zinn, a famous meditation teacher, and one of his sayings, I think it's a lovely line. He says that we've only got moments to live. And you think, well, that's a bit dramatic. But when you drill into it, basically what he's saying is that, life's just a series of moments, and you're either absorbed in those moments or you're not. And we talked about it with Michael. It'd be good to get his take on it. We talked about the juice, about the idea that when he trains, when he's really absorbed in his training, that's the juice for him. That's what makes him feel alive. That's what makes him feel good. But without the sort of competition, there's sometimes not the reason to do that. So I've kind of reframed it a little bit, that some of the discomfort that he was feeling about the thought of playing in competitions, it was actually worth having that discomfort if he reframed it, that it gave him the juice to actually go and train each day. And, Michael, you've talked to me many times. There's times that when you go out and you're training for golf, you're just completely lost in it, aren't you? You're lost in action. You're just so absorbed in this thing, this crazy game, that, we could argue whether there's any point to any of it, but this crazy game that just absorbs you. Well, it's that absorption, that complete immersion in a task, immersion in your training. That's what actually feels good.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I was quite fascinated by that falls directly into this category, I think, and I'd like to hear what the rest of you have to say, but it's Krakauer, who wrote Into Thin Air about the Mount Everest disaster, which I've read twice, by the way. Well, he also wrote a book, Karl, called The Devil, a story, not a book, a short story. I think it was an Outside magazine, called The Devil's Thumb. Now, that's a spire in Utah. And Krakauer was the first person to climb it solo. So he was a free solo climber, but nobody had ever done it before. So it's like almost like a church steeple. And when he finished the climb of the Devil's Thumb, he wrote this story about why do people climb. Now, anybody who has read any of these books, Into Thin Air, or any of the mountain climbing books, Anatoly Borkreeves or anything like this, wonders, why would someone do this when there is an excellent chance you're going to die? I mean, there is really a good chance of it. As a matter of fact, I've heard people or seen people in writing say, well, I know how I'm going to die, in either an avalanche or a fall, or both. Well, the answer was, the reason people become addicted to this is remarkably parallel to what you just said, Karl. It is the ultimate living in the moment, because when you are climbing free solo, there's only one, there's no past, there is no future, there's only the next step. And there is a complete clarity of purpose, no confusion. There are no friends, there are no enemies, there's only the next step. And that creates a sense of calm, because you know the consequence of failure is you will die, not maybe. So that becomes the addiction, which isn't it similar to what you just said, Karl?
Yeah, absolutely. Which was, I'm trying to think, as you were saying that story there, I was trying to think of the mountain climber, not Hillary, the one that actually
Alex
died. Sorry.
Sorry, I thought because I was thinking of that guy who's never no ropes, nothing. Alex Honnold, I think National Geographic did this, and that's one of the things. Everybody around him, everybody sees it. We all know he's gonna die like this, and there's only one guy who doesn't think he's gonna die doing this, and it's him. I mean, this is why, and. That's it. I mean, I had a friend who was doing a racing, bike racing, and he said, when I do this, it's me and my front wheel. That's it.
Yes. Yes. Or people that drive fast cars.
Yeah.
Or some people call it a form of meditation, or prayer, if that's the direction.
It's a bit like Karl was saying, you're so absorbed in what you're doing that it's kind of a meditation, I think. Yeah, maybe.
It is. And there's actually a wonderful clip on YouTube for anybody listening to this worth watching, whether you're a golfer or not. And it's Tiger Woods trying to describe golf, and this was back in the early 2000s when he was dominant in the world of golf like nobody's ever been before. He was so far ahead as world number one that he could have not played for 2 years and he would still have been world number one. He was totally dominant in the game. And this wonderful clip, if you put a search in on YouTube and just put Tiger Zone, you'll see this, about a 5-6 minute clip, something like that. And Woods actually finds it difficult. He finds the words difficult to put together to talk about. But in essence, what he says is that he gets so immersed and engaged in creating this particular shot in this particular moment. And, you know, ultimately, that's what you're trying to get a lot of golfers to do, is to be so immersed in this particular task, this particular shot in this particular moment, that actually the real paradox of all of this is that by immersing yourself completely in that task, you are in a really, really heightened state and a very happy state. But then the paradox is the more you can immerse yourself in that, the more all the other things that we think that we want, like trophies and money and winning, all of those things tend to take care of themselves. It's when many golfers fall into the trap. They end up what I call playing this for that, in the sense that they're playing this particular shot, but this shot is all about something that might happen to them in the future as a result of hitting this shot. They might win a tournament, they might qualify at a tour school or whatever. And one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life, and it's a sort of salutary lesson for life itself, really. I mean, John Lennon said, John Lennon said that life is what happens while we're busy making plans. And it really resonated with that. And I was fortunate to work with a guy who won the British Open, the ultimate major to win the British Open at St Andrews. Something that you would think, God, that would make you happy for the rest of your life. You'd wake up every morning, you'd pull the curtains back, and you'd never have anything other than a smile on your face after achieving that. And I remember seeing him only a couple of weeks after him winning the Open. And I'm not saying he was depressed, but I walked into his house. They were in Spain at the time. And I walked into, and there was actually a cloud because there were various issues in his life. He had to change schedules. He was thinking about moving his house and all the rest of it. And I thought, my God, you know, the ultimate that can ever happen to you as a golfer, you've done literally that you've climbed to the top of the mountain. And that good feeling only lasted a few days. And I thought, it's almost the ultimate illusion that we as humans harbor, is that I'll be happy when I sell the business. I'll be happy when I have 15 staff. I'll be happy when I get on tour and all of these things. And yeah, whilst they're great to aim in those directions, as we've said, you know, with Michael, the real juice is, what am I doing today? You know, and I say to a lot of people, see if you can answer this question. And that question would be, what does a good day look like today? And if you can answer that question quickly, you've missed the point. And that simple question of what does a good day look like today actually takes a lot of reflection and a lot of refinement. And it doesn't mean that every day is the same, but when you get a bit more clarity on the answer to that question, I promise you a lot of the other things that you think you want will fall into place.
So, hey, Stefan, how would you answer that question? What Karl just asked, what does a good day look like?
Well, you know, the last couple of days, I was thinking of things like that because, you know, Jerry, I'm in the process of you know, building a e-learning platform and everything, and it's a lot of work. And I was talking with my girlfriend, and I said, you know what, I've been working like crazy, but I finish my day and I have the impression I didn't do anything. And I know I work, but because it doesn't show or doesn't. And I was, you know, when I start my day, I have no real goal. It's just I have to work, but I have nothing at the end of the day to tell myself I did what I was supposed to do. I never worked like that. You know, I don't have a budget. I don't have a list of things I should do. What should I do now? So it's hard to have my report card at the end of the day. And because of that, I feel that a lot of time I'm not productive, like I should be productive. And so, but what's a good day? When you said that, for me, it's like, it's probably different every day. I mean, we talked about that, Jerry. You said you want to be the best Jerry you can. So probably a good day for you would be at the end of the day, well, I was the best Jerry I could have been today.
Right. And not every day is the same. I mean, that is, Karl, that is my self-definition, is I'm trying to be the best Jerry I can be. And some days are better than others. But you know, what you said about this achievement, by the way, it's my festive pen, Karl. What does that tell you about my personality? Anyway, I digress.
There's a whole show in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you're making, not leave that on, Wharton Palmer. Leave that thing on now. There, that's who I want to be, is the court.
So this is where it started. This is why it started.
Ry Cooder wrote a song called "The Borderline," and Bob Dylan has recorded it. It's remarkable, and a number of other, Willie Nelson has recorded it. And that song is about what you just described, Karl. That if you can just get across the borderline, then you'll be happy. Or the grass is always greener. You know, this could be better if. For example, a close friend of my wife's and mine is a top level gemologist. I mean, big shot. And when they look at these gemstones, they always say, "This is spectacular. It'd be a little better if, you know, the food would taste a little better if, the seat in the theater would be a little better if." And that seems to be counterproductive, bordering on self-destructive. Do you think, Karl? Do you think that that's a good thing to look at all the time? Better if?
Yeah, a great point again. And you know, one of the things I'll say to players when I'm working with them, or people in business, that your productivity and your performance will be a result of what you put your attention on. And have a kind of simple formula: either your attention's in a useful place for you, or a useless place. And a lot of that is been determined. What you pay attention to is determined largely by the questions that you ask yourself. And like you've just said there, that, you know, if the question is, what's wrong with this, or what could be better about this, that tends to lead the mind in some pretty destructive places. You know, it's very individual, and you know, certain people have got to look for certain flaws in certain industries because that's the nature of what they do. But the more I've looked at different approaches, that this question of what does a good day look like, and you just said about having the best version of yourself, and what I've sort of suggested to a lot of people is there's a lot of detail in the day, in the sense that there's a huge middle part of the day, but really the critical elements of the day are the start of the day and the end of the day. You know, if there's a lot of research to suggest that beginnings and endings are so important in terms of the way that they reside in the human mind. You know, you can watch a film,
yes,
and if it's got a good start to it and it's got a good finish to it, you'll tell everybody it's a great film. It might have been a bunch of crap for 2 hours in the middle of it, but if it's got a good finish, you'll remember it. So even this idea for people to sort of say, okay, let's drill down. What would a good day look like? How would it start? Mm-hmm. And, you know, getting into some detail about, you know, how do you react to the alarm clock? What do you do when the alarm clock goes off? What is your ritual with your shower and you brushing your teeth and all those things that you do? And some of those behaviors that we do automatically, those are opportunities to actually engage in some things that you can add on to that. So even though this sounds a little bit left field, but I'll try and make a dental point to it. People are going to brush their teeth every day. Well, hopefully they are. But when they brush the teeth, that is a wired-in behavioral activity that you've got. Well, what about if whenever you brush your teeth, you actually thought of something that you're really grateful for? And I know that sounds a bit fluffy and a bit left field, but by actually doing that, you're creating a state of mind that actually is more conducive to being the best you that particular day. Because it's very easy to do all these activities that are wired in, like, you know, putting your shoes on and brushing your teeth and shaving and all the rest of it. But those activities that we don't even have to think about are just golden opportunities where you can link the existing behavior with something else that actually really adds something to your day. It's kind of like heaven sent for you. You don't even have to think about it. It's already there, but add something else to it. And then you're potentially really adding to the day.
It makes me think, I think it's Mark Twain who said, start every day by eating a live frog, and then everything else will be better.
Yeah, there's a metaphor there as well that's interesting. That metaphor. This is a metaphor. I'm not saying it's reality, but when you get to the pearly gates, in that flash just before death, you'd hate to have the flash of you blew it. You were already there. Mm-hmm. You were looking for something and it was already there. I kind of like with this COVID business and all of the civil disobedience around the world and all of this uncertainty. When I'm talking with folks and they say, well, how are you? How are you doing? I think, well, how am I doing? Actually, I'm not sick. My wife's not sick. My dog's not sick. I'm doing just great. And it reminds me of friends who have found out that they had terminal diseases. And one fellow was Ron Bell. I don't mind saying who it was. He's deceased now about 5 years. But one time I was talking to him while he was dying, and he knew pancreatic cancer was killing him. And he said, look, how about you? How are you? And how are you? And I said, me? I couldn't be better. Mm-hmm. And he said, really? And I said, I'd have a lot of nerve complaining about anything because I don't have pancreatic cancer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Michael, I'm curious. Let me ask you a question. In this 2 years that you've been doing, and I know that with Karl, and I know that you've expressed how remarkably useful this has been and how it has diffused into your life in general. If you were to say, if I were to ask the question, what's the most useful, productive, valuable experience or exercises that you've had as a result of the mind factor with Karl, what would you say?
The accumulation of good days was a wonderful, wonderful starting point for me, because it really made me. No, actually, I think the biggest starting point was the question why. Why do you play golf? Because it didn't come to me in a flash. And it was something that I really did have to mull over for about 2 or 3 days. And then it became, when I reflected on the very first time I played golf and everything that I've done in golf since then, it became very apparent that the process or journey to self-mastery was my why. It's funny, to be the best I can be and to go down every avenue I can do to be the best I can be. I love going to the gym 300 days a year. It's all about becoming a better golfer or becoming a better me. So that was the single biggest thing, is the realization that it's not competing. It's not the results of competing that drive me. It's the journey to self-mastery that drives me. And perhaps competing will be a part of that journey again sometime as a measure of where I am on that journey, rather than a judgment of who I am.
That's remarkably well stated.
Uh-huh.
I wrote this down the other day because I thought I've got to try and sum it up in some form of eloquent way. And I said, I've decided that my why is that I will bring purpose to my game to engage in the mastery process instead of trying to get purpose from actual performance.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think before I was going down that road of my actual performance, and my judgment of my performance was judging the game. No, that's not where I want to be. I want the journey to be my why is the journey. Going to nice golf courses, playing good golf courses. I love golf course architecture. That means going on a trip with Debbie to when we went to Australia for 2 weeks and did nothing but golf courses for 2 weeks. That's the finest golf experience of my life. It's not winning 10 state amateur titles. It's not doing anything. That's not the best part of my life for golf. It's playing golf courses, and that was fun. So that's been the light bulb moment, truly discovering what my why is. Now, I would like that to get back into competition, perhaps. I know I'm going to compete this year. I've got one tournament on the schedule for sure in Paris, because it's on a golf course that's on my top 3 golf courses to play anywhere in the world. So I'm going to play in that tournament because it's this particular golf course. So that will be a way back into competition because I'm playing on a golf course I really, really want to play. So I know I'm going to do that.
Michael, when you're competing in golf, I play golf for fun. I mean, casual. I think the best game I had in my life was 92, but I'm always over 100. But I have fun. I always have fun. And I've played with people who are not better golfers than me, and they always get mad when they miss. And I always say, why do you should be happy when you hit the ball and not be mad every time you don't, but when you're competing in golf, are you competing more against yourself or against the others?
Myself, totally. And the golf course. It's me and the golf course. And actually, during competition, I've always been fine. Karl knows this. Actually, during the competition, nerves and anxiety has never been the problem. Okay. It's getting to the first tee that's always been my issue. Once I'm under the gun, that's cool. I'm fine. I mean, I don't care. But getting there has always been the issue. Fear of failure.
Karl, is that fairly typical of what you've seen, or is this unique?
No. I think Michael's fairly unique, but that's another story.
Again,
but no, I think a lot of us fall into that trap of, as Michael has so well put there, of actually playing golf as a measurement against other people, as opposed to a measurement against ourselves, really. And I think when relating it to Tiger Woods again, without laboring the point on him, I remember reading a story where Earl Woods had said to Tiger that his value as a person was not dependent on where a golf ball went. His value as a person, as a human being, was a given. That's all our own birthright. But when your value as a person is measured by what a golf ball does, it becomes a very vulnerable place. Because if the ball bounces left and you're in the fairway, you're a good person. If it bounces to the right, you're a bad person. And that's too thin a tightrope to walk. So I think what Michael's connected back to with this, as he put so well, he's connected back to mastery. Now, that's not mastery over others, that's mastery over himself and expressing his one of the wonderful things about sport, it allows you to express your capability, whatever that is. It allows you to express movement. Ultimately, one of the great joys of any sport, I think, whatever it is that you like to do, is the feeling of moving your body. And I think sometimes that we forget that when you're more on a mastery path, there's subtle feelings that you get in your body in golf that allow you to actually influence the ball flight. And you can play a number of shots that when you're disconnected from that, it becomes much harder to actually create these subtle variations in the shots that you play. So yeah, it's not an easy route. We've all sort of fallen into that trap of doing this for that. But the more it's about mastery over yourself, then it's a little bit more enjoyable path.
For a very brief period of time, I studied Kyudo. It's Zen archery with one of these. The bow itself is maybe close to 7 feet tall. I'm sure you've seen pictures of this. It's but the philosophy behind it is incredibly similar to what you're talking about. So the classes that I was taking in this, everything is about the preparation. It's like a tea ceremony. Everything is about, it's the way you approach the bow. It's the way you pick up the bow. It's the way you walk and hold the bow. It's the way that you place the arrow into the bow with the way your arms extend. The least important thing is if you hit the target.
Yeah.
And the ultimate objective is that you become part of the bow and the arrow. Now, and when I hear you talking about golf, that you're judging your own worth if the ball flies left, right, or down the center. That's incredible, isn't it? I mean, the parallels to these things, and I think Michael, didn't you say something about that you've learned to get out of your own way?
Yeah, I mean, it's stupid that, I mean, and I think that was the most frustrating thing before I started working with Karl was, I'm a reasonably intelligent person. I understand the logic that it's just a game. I understand the logic that I shouldn't be judging my self-worth by a game of golf. So why do I allow competition to be such a stressor in life? And that is a revolving frustration, because the more you think about it and the more you try and put common sense into it, the deeper down the hole you go, because you realize I'm stupid for letting myself get in this position. So literally I get out of my own way and try to get to that logic whereby it is just a game. You know why? Because it is just a game. I mean, it's, if I play shitty at a golf tournament, when I show up at work on Monday morning, the kids in the dental chair don't give a toss about how I played. That's the reality. There's only one person who cares, and it's me.
Yeah.
So until you can get out of your own way, for lack of a better term, you can't go anywhere. So that's why the why becomes so important.
Karl, do you think that a lot of what this getting out of your own way and writing your own or rewriting your own story, how much do you think has to do with a person's ego? And I'm thinking actually about this fantastic documentary called The Last Dance about Michael Jordan. And I'm not a sports fan of any substance at all, but it might have been Wharton Palmer, but somebody said, you've got to watch this thing. I think it was Michael told me that. And it blew, I'm about to start watching it for the second time. And what strikes me right between the eyes is he's not well liked by his teammates at all. And in order to get himself into the zone, to get the warrior out, he had to create these incredible scenarios, many of which were fabrications, about people who had done things to him on the other team, and make him angry enough that he wanted to literally, well, I'll say metaphorically, he wanted to destroy them and embarrass them. And it seems to me like when they're interviewing Jordan now as an older fellow, long retired, I can't imagine that is a real source of self-fulfillment or happiness, that this is what you had to do to yourself to get yourself game. What do you think of all of that, Karl? I've been dying to ask you that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting again, isn't it, that we look at people like Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong. You could run through a whole, litany of people who've reached levels that most mortals can't dream of, and we automatically think that what they did or do must be the right thing to do. But only that individual knows, only Michael Jordan knows, only Lance Armstrong would know, only Tiger Woods would know, was the real fulfillment there. And when you open that up, and I've just mentioned Lance Armstrong, we all know what happened there, of what he was prepared to do to win. And I watched a fascinating documentary in this country about him. I'm not deflecting from Michael Jordan. I think there are all these guys in similar spheres, but a fascinating documentary about him on the BBC over 2 parts. And we all know what happened, but it seemed that the Lance Armstrong that was talking when he'd finished cycling, and clearly he was not going to make a return, there was a part of him almost couldn't believe what the Lance Armstrong of the Tour de France wins actually did. It was almost like there was a detachment that I really can't believe I was that person that was prepared to do all of those things in the pursuit of winning. So, it does come back to this question of why do you do it? And we applaud winners and we idolize winners. But I think it's not always, it's a case of not always taking it that they've got it all sorted out for themselves. It's not a guarantee. And, I think of people like Arnold Palmer in golf. Arnold Palmer, passed away in the last few years, but I know for a fact that he never stopped playing golf. He when he was well into his 80s, he would play golf with people at Bay Hill every day in Florida, and he just loved to play the game. And I think there's somebody, if you ask Palmer, did he feel like he needed to rip people's heads off? I don't know. I don't know what Arnold Palmer's approach was, but the fact that he still wanted to do it in his 80s shows maybe a different approach.
Yeah, it makes me think of another one, Andre Agassi, who hated tennis.
Yeah.
He hated tennis. When he stopped his career, he stopped playing tennis completely.
Yeah.
Which and is there a difference, Karl? Like when you're doing it for a living, it has to be different than when you do it as a hobby. You want to be good. You want to be good a golfer, but it's the game is just for fun. When you're a professional athlete and this is your revenue, this is where the money comes from. Is the mindset different? Should it be different? Should it be the same?
I think some players still manage, even though they're making millions of dollars from the sport, they still manage to retain that childlike fascination with getting a ball into a basket, or a golf ball into a hole, or running a line in football, or whatever it may be. I think the ones who are really staying in it for a long time, that I think that there has to be some love for the game itself, not for what the game gives you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the line that gets blurred often, that sport can reward people so magnificently in ways that we can't even dream of. The rewards are so huge, and the lines must get blurred. But I think to really stay in a sport and to really keep enjoying in a sport, it gets back to what Michael said about more of personal mastery rather than mastery over others. And if the quest is personal mastery, a lot of the things that you think you want are going to come anyway.
The flip side to that, Stefan, is what you've just said. You would say, and you asked the question, is there a difference? Sitting here, I would say, no, there's not a difference. I don't believe there's anybody out there playing professional golf who takes their training and journey to mastery any more seriously than I do. So, and maybe that's my issue. I mean, maybe that's why we're having this discussion. So I think, by virtue of them making a living at it, that makes it different. But I think the mentality is the same either way.
And I think it can be applied to anything.
For some people.
Yeah, it can be applied, to golf, but to anything we're doing. I think that, Karl, it's the time to thank you, isn't it?
It is, unfortunately. Much as I'm enjoying the conversation, we've Time's. I suppose it's a good sign that time has disappeared. If time disappears when you're playing sport, you're in the right place.
Really, just one question, Karl. If people want to reach you, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, the best thing to do is to go to the website, themindfactor.com. You can get in touch with us there, or I have a podcast that comes out every week called The Brain Booster. That's available on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. So those would be the two best routes, really.
Very good. Well, I'll be the first to thank you very much, Karl. Like you said, the hour just went like this, and I mean we have to do another one. Yeah, no, it felt like we just got going there. So it's that's
thanks,
Coach. Thanks, Carl.
Thanks,
I'll be in touch,
thanks,
buddy.
fellas.
Be in touch,
Thanks,
mate.
thanks to everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was really nice.
Bye.
4. So, Jerry, what do you think of this interesting conversation?
Well, how good was that?
I mean, the time went like this, for real.
And I always say when you were at Gnathos, if you're in the C.L.E.A.R Institute, or if you're with the Odd Couple, it won't be the same old thing.
No, what's the purpose of doing the same old thing all the time?
And
it's already there. The same old thing is there. Right. If you want the same old thing, you can have it.
Right.
This is not what we give you.
So I think that I can't imagine that there aren't people that wouldn't be very interested to contact Karl Morris. His link is right there, somewhere there.
Something in the description, or in a total disclosure here. I mean, we don't receive anything from Karl Morris. We did not get paid today to have him on the podcast, and it's just.
And we didn't, and Stefan, we didn't pay him either.
No, of course not.
Karl is very.
And by the way, you didn't pay me either.
I'll get back to you on that. Karl didn't ask for any money, and
no.
He's. I know Karl's very, very highly respected. He's also very busy, so he was really doing this out of interest because, as he told you, he's never done this with a few dentists.
No. And if you go you should go get a look at the website and look at the people who he worked with.
Yeah, the Mind Factor, yes.
You will be impressed.
Yeah, you'll be impressed. And think about not only our discussions, but Karl's, you can see his analytical mind working, and you can also see that he's done quite a bit of this. Stefan, we both hope that everyone that is watching and listening to this finds it of value, and probably should watch it more than once. I certainly intend to, don't you?
Of course. I mean, and we were there the whole time. But of course, and you know what? I'm going to watch it a lot while doing the editing, and I look forward to that.
Yeah. The Odd Couple were the
center of resistance is always
somewhere.
We know it's somewhere. We just don't know where it is. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Quantum. It's quantum.
Quantum. This is everything we had for you today. See you next time. Bye. Join us next time for another interesting episode of The Odd Couple. Now, meanwhile, if you like this video, subscribe to this channel. The Odd Couple is available as an audio podcast on all platforms and as a video podcast on our YouTube channel.